No one? It's topical. Come on. All right, here we go. This is Stephen Heath, and this is Why Am I Surrounded by Friggin' Idiots?
Alrighty, well, as he said, my name is Stephen Heath. This talk is titled, Why Must I Be Surrounded by Friggin' Idiots? And the answer to that question is because you probably hired them if you're in a position like I am. So, to sort of start off, I want to give you guys just a bit of background about me. I work for a small consulting firm up in Spokane, Washington. I work as a director of security services, master's degree in computer science, too many certs, and I know that doesn't really mean crap, but, they asked for it on RFP, so I got to do them. Worked in IT for over 10 years. I run a team of security consultants, analysts, 2-year-old son you see in the picture, Seattle sports fanatic, as you can see from what I'm wearing. And I'm a serious nerd, and that picture should pretty much prove that. The reason I'm going over all of this is nothing that I have in my background prepared me at all for having to be a manager, having to hire people, having to bring people in, build a team. I mean, I started out as a technical guy, worked as a pen tester, occasionally doing a little bit of audit, kind of getting into that realm, doing that. Started out at a small consulting firm. I was employee 5. We have 35 now. Grew up, have a team of about 6, 7 guys I have to run, manage all the time. And, really didn't have any particular knowledge or experience that really gave me a good picture of how to hire people and, what to do. And so that was kind of what the genesis of this talk was. Well, at groups like this, there are other people here that have gone through the same story. I mean, we're all technical people for the most part here. That's what we do for a living. That's what we want to do. So when we end up in this position, we have to be able to build a good team. And so, I really looked at, okay, this is how I've been hiring, pretty much in 12 steps. It was, okay, so, somebody quits or you have to fire somebody, fine. So I have a position open. Okay, well then I panic. I need to get someone in there right now. Dust off that job description that HR makes you have. Take a look at it, go, yeah, sure, whatever. We post it online. We'll find Monster, Dice.com. That's a great place. Let's put it there. Then we look at some resumes, and we pick about 3 that don't suck terribly. We go in, we get an interview, and we ask them, okay, what are your strengths and your weaknesses? Can you tell me, what makes you a unique snowflake? And then we just sort of hire one of them. We say, yeah, you'll work. And then in 3 months, you just regret the hell out of it. And you're like, damn it. And so then you spend the next 3 months trying to internally justify why you need to fire this guy. And then, you fire him and then, oh, whoops, I got to panic again and start over the cycle. So, you really come to the conclusion that, if the best way that you will ever deal with a bad employee is just to not hire them. Let's just, cut this cycle out. Let's actually hire somebody that we really need, that can really contribute to our organization, and get the right person in to begin with, instead of wasting our time with, going through and trying to go through this cycle. So, how do we do that? Well, of course, every manager is going to have a different idea or different way of doing it. But I wanted to kind of put together, here are the ways that I found that actually work. This is what's good. So the first thing you really need to think about: what are you actually looking for? What is the job you actually need this person to do? Your job description is mostly worthless. I mean, something is written by HR to sort of try and cover everything, everything. I mean, you've got a job description, you're kind of required to have it, but you really need to think, okay, what is this person really going to be doing? If, and be specific, if there's somebody who's going to be working on your, Palo Alto firewalls all day, or your Fortinet firewalls, or whatever, I mean, if that's going to be their job, then you might want to actually think about, can they do this job that you're going to be hiring them for? If you need a pen tester, then they better be able to do pen test stuff. If, you really got to be specific about what you're having them do. And this is, and you also got to think, what are the things that are important to me and my team? What makes us tick? What makes us operate? What makes us run? And so you're going to have things like, okay, how much experience is this somebody that I'm willing to, pay a little bit less for, but I'm willing to train them up and spend some extra time with and get them going? Are they going to fit with our culture? I mean, do they actually care about security, or are they just kind of, IT guy who's like, I want to try that security stuff, do they have soft skills? Are they actually, do they have the right technical ability? We have to actually think about what's important for us to be able to build the right employees and build the right team for what we're trying to do. So the first thing that I found that's just incredibly powerful when you're doing this kind of thing, build a bench. Actually think about things that, your online job postings are rarely going to get you the people that you actually want. You're going to have to filter through so much work, and you have to do it. To go through a ton of resumes, go through a ton of things. Sometimes these things actually work, but when you actually get right down to it, you say, okay, just enter this mode of continuously recruiting. I mean, you meet somebody who you think would be a perfect fit for your team. You meet them at a conference. You go out and visit a college. A couple of universities around Spokane, they're always, happy to have speakers or anything come in. You just come in and talk about InfoSec, talk about crazy things that you've seen while pen testing. And then afterwards you have a couple of the kids who are really excited about it come up to you and they're like, hey, I want to know more about this. I want to, get more involved in what's going on. I want to understand, or, oh yeah, I was doing this one thing. And, you're actually going to get people who are passionate, interested in what's going on. We've also tried other things, like giving a bounty to employees. Like, there's no recommendation like the recommendation of a current employee, somebody who's already in the team, who already knows how you tick, how you operate. They can think, I know this guy who'd be perfect to be in here. We actually just basically set it up that, if you recommend somebody for a job and they stick around, for 6 months, they become a valuable part of the team, we'll give you $1,000. Just, throw it down. So, and, we found a couple of good employees by it. And you think $1,000, that's a lot of money. Think about this. An online recruiting service, that's like $10,000, $20,000 to get somebody that's in there. $1,000 to an employee, I'd much rather give an employee $1,000 than, give some online recruiter that kind of money. You can really put together a really good bench of employees. The other thing that's great is you can actually know what these people's skills are. There's a couple people, that are out there that have targeted, have, thought about, this person would be a great fit for the team. I don't have a position open for them right now, but, I know that, okay, at some point, if I need somebody who can do, like auditing and that sort of thing, I've got somebody right on the bench that I can say, I know exactly about what this person, know that she would fit immediately with this, our organization, our culture, what we've got going on. Know the skill set, know everything, know even the salary requirements, know everything. It's like on the bench, it's a no-brainer, what you've got right there. So it's easy. The one thing, of course, that I found is that, I run just the one division of the company that does the security stuff. I ended up having, my bench ended up being so good that my bench keeps getting poached by other people in the company. It's like, no, man, I found that guy. What are you doing? You can't take him. But, at least you're getting the other thing, the other good people into the company. So, but the other thing you really got to keep in mind is that your best employees probably already have a job. There are, sometimes things happen and, people lose their job and they're always looking for things, but usually your top-notch employees are already going to be working somewhere else. So by actually going out and connecting and networking with people, you're going to actually be finding people that you can kind of have in your employment bench that, yeah, they already have a job, but they might be looking to move. They might be looking to transition out of where they are and come work for you. So, don't put too much into the whole stock of, the whole idea of doing the online job posting or anything, or, trolling LinkedIn to try and find somebody. It's that you're going to be spending a lot of time wasting your time doing that. The other thing, just to keep in mind, when you're looking at people's resumes, and, it is kind of common sense, but, I like to call resumes the internet of job hiring. In other words, they're mostly bullshit. You really gotta watch out and look for the red flags, look for what's actually, going on in people's resumes. People love to inflate their, what they're doing. I mean, obviously, certain things like when people have a typo in the phrase, I have a great attention to detail. That's probably, a red flag. Has been done. If they can't even organize their own resume, I mean, it's going to be really hard if you got to put together a pen test report or something else for a client. Are they going to be able to do that if they can't even organize their own damn resume? It's something to really keep in mind. The qualifiers. These are my favorites. This is, I had exposure to Linux. What the hell does that mean? I mean, honestly, what does that mean? Oh, I shoulder surfed one time when a guy was, logging into a Linux box. Yeah, I had exposure to Linux. Or, I attended this college. Well, did you graduate? What classes did you take? What did you do? That means absolutely nothing to me if you say I attended or, I assisted with this project. What'd you do? Go get the guy coffee? I mean, did you work on a firewall? Did you do this? No. You were around to go get the sandwiches at lunch. I assisted with that project, damn it. You gotta, when people use qualifiers, I always just sort of mark that in the resume. And if they do make it to like an interview round or something, I'm going to call them out on that. I'm going to ask them, what exactly did you do? I mean, come on. The other thing is, a certain level of professionalism. If somebody has the email address bronyforlife@hotmail.com on their business resume, maybe there's a certain question of tact or, whether they would actually have the professionalism to be able to do the job if that's what they're putting on their resume. Maybe you want to think about that. The other one that everyone loves to talk about is like the strange gaps in employment. And it's all cool. I mean, people lose their job, they go off and do something else for a while. It's not really relevant to the job history. That's fine, but it's definitely worth asking. If somebody has a 4-year gap, I mean, are they just trying to hide something? Or trying to hide that, I work for this guy and I got fired because I was a terrible employee and all that. I don't want you to talk to him. It's usually a good idea to kind of key in on those strange gaps and just sort of say, okay, what's going on if you actually are talking to them. This is the other thing to really think about when you're looking at going through the hiring process. Sometimes the best employee is not the best candidate. So you've got the guy who comes in with the pristine resume, all polished, has all the perfect answers for every single standard interview question, is probably because he's been through about 50 interviews and jumps jobs every 2 years and does a lot of other things. It's okay for your candidates to not be perfect, but you want to actually think about. You don't want to actually have somebody who's just the pristine candidate. They're not exactly. They might not be the guy that you're actually after. So. A few other things I like to do as you're going through the hiring process, trying to find people. I really like to pre-screen. You go through, you find some resumes and some things, some people you actually want to talk to. It's not a bad idea to actually just do a sanity check on the resume. Filter out somebody, because let's face it, interviewing is a pain in the ass. Okay, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You basically have to block out half a day. And, for all of us who are really busy, have a lot of projects going on, that's a huge time investment. The last thing you want to do is have an interview with somebody which an absolute waste of your time. It's like, okay, I just took that hour, flushed it down the toilet. I'm just not getting that back. And, if I've got other projects I have to take care of, probably going to end up doing those at night. And I'm going to hear about it from my wife, and it's not going to be fun. And, I don't want to get into that. So why not just filter some people out? One of the things I love to do is the written pre-screen. It's really easy. You could just throw together something on just SurveyMonkey or something and email it out to somebody. Just test their writing ability and their ability to interact with clients or send an email or do something like that. I mean, you can, tell them, hey, I've got this email from a client who's completely pissed off. Just tell them, this is the email you just received from a client. How do you handle this? And just see if their writing skills are even up to it. See if they can actually handle, being able to diplomatically calm down some sort of client that's really ticked off at you or dealing with somebody like that. The other thing, just to make things really simple. I mean, just tell them, okay, just describe for me the list of steps you'd take to investigate a malware infection. Or, heck, you can even take it down even to the, bottom level. Write out a list of steps to troubleshoot a printer that won't print. I mean, let's go all the way back to just IT 101. You're not really looking for the answer of how they do it. You're looking for how can they organize a list? Can they actually put things together? Do they have decent writing skills? Is it going to be filled with typos? Is it going to look like crap? Having decent writing skills is almost mandatory for what you're wanting to do. So you want to make sure that you can filter that kind of thing out. The other thing, quick, easy way to do it, just do a phone pre-screen. Just see what they sound like on the phone. If they sound like a complete idiot on the phone, then, they're probably not going to be a good fit, and you can save yourself a lot of time with a 5-minute phone call that you would have otherwise had to waste a bunch of time on. Yeah, and you can, and this is actually a decent spot because you're not really after, big, you're not actually after real kind of interview questions. If, HR wants you to ask all the classic interview questions, the phone pre-screen, not a bad time to do it. Just get those out of the way and just say, because really all you want to do is, you just want to hear what they sound like, how they organize the thought, if they can actually communicate with you at all. if they can't, you can just kind of get them out there. Another good thing to do is to notify them of any bookkeeping. You can filter out some people, notify them, okay, if you have to do a background check, drug check, anything like that, credit check, anything that you're required to do as part of the job, it's a good idea to notify them then. So in case, oh yeah, I've got 2 felonies, and if I get a 3rd strike, I go to prison for my life. Well, okay, well, maybe we can just end this right here. Let's move on. The other thing, and this one's kind of, you can find, and if you look at hiring advice, if you look at hiring blogs, books, whatever, you find this advice absolutely go both directions, completely. You either find those that say you should get salary requirements out of the way first, immediately, just get them over with and find out what's going on. Other people are like, you really shouldn't talk about that till later. I actually fall in the former camp. I'd like to know really what I'm up against because, I have a candidate that comes in and is absolutely perfect. And if he wants, like twice what I have in my budget to be able to pay him, I'd rather know now. Let's just not waste, I don't want to waste his time either because clearly if he's a really good candidate, his time's valuable. I don't want to waste his time. I don't want to waste my time. Let's go ahead and just forget about that right now and get it out of the way. So I like to just go ahead and on the phone pre-screen, just kind of say, what are you looking for? Just so that we can actually kind of get it out of the way. A thing to keep in mind though is that this really doesn't have to be formal. I mean, you can if I have a kid that sort of emails me up after a talk, I go out to a college, he emails me up, I'm interested in a job, I can just write a couple of emails back and forth with them, and I can already tell a decent amount about their writing skills just through that. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big formalized process. If you want it to be, it can be great, but it doesn't have to be. You can also just pick up the phone and, hey, what's going on? And this is actually my absolute favorite thing to do, and I found it just works fantastic. Just a happy hour. Just set up a little event. It doesn't even have to matter. Just a happy hour, wine tasting, beer tasting, sporting event, whatever. And just, anyone that you're considering hiring that you kind of have on that bench, in the back of your mind, I'd like to hire this guy someday. Just check them an invite. Get them out there. Again, the amount of money that you're going to spend on doing something like this is a fraction of what you're going to pay for an online recruiter. And, with the recruiters, you never know who you're going to get, if they're going to fit your culture, if they're actually going to fit anything you want. It works great. And not to mention the fact that you could actually, see how they interact with your team. Bring some of your other guys down there, have them hang out, talk, have a couple beers with each other, and just, see how they interact. I mean, you might find that, they're more interested in sitting there the whole time and kissing your butt instead of actually, learning about the rest of your team that you have there. Well, that, it's something that's, full flag you might have in your mind of, okay, that's how they're going to act. And the biggest reason I like to do this, honestly, is that, this is my rule of that, if I can't stand to sit down at a table and have a beer with a guy for a half hour, I damn sure don't want to hire him. Let's just be completely honest here, and this is the big thing, let's keep in mind that everything that I have listed so far in this talk is something you could do before you ever even consider stepping in an interview room. Like, when you actually think about, if you apply all these rules and you actually think about what, I've gone over here and what I've talked about, you've filtered out a hell of a lot of people from, your candidate pool. You actually don't have to worry about, a lot of people who just might not work out, or that might not fit your culture, might not fit what you're trying to do, and we haven't even bothered to start interviewing yet. So, from there, and that's the thing, like, I actually feel like I've got a really good team now. They work together well. They do everything, and the thing is that all the key players on it are people that I vetted before I hired, that I had a pretty good idea even before they came in, that, that they were going to be the top candidate before we even got in there, because they already fit. So, I really encourage you to actually think about that if you're in a position where you have to hire. The other thing here is, so when it actually comes to doing the actual interview itself, you really want to choose your questions and choose them well. Your interview should be short. You're really going to know a lot of what you need to know fairly quickly. Particularly for a first interview, it's the best thing to do is, again, kind of going back to the very beginning, list what's important to you. Go through and hammer out, okay, these are the things I absolutely need for the job. Every question, I mean, don't waste your time putting in throwaway questions. Put in, things that are actually identify these critical things. So, like, in my case, usually what I, try and do is hammer out, okay, about 50% of the interview I'm going to have, sort of technical questions, because it's generally a technical role that I'm going to be hiring for. I need to know what their technical skill set is, where they are, what's going on. The must-haves, you have 1 or 2 questions that are absolutely must-have. Like these are things I need to get a good answer out of this question. Flag those things. Some other things that are nice to have, 1 to 2. Overall, though, I mean, 8 to 10 questions, and you should know what you need to know. If you want to do more than that, or after you've gone through this initial screening, you might have 2, 3 guys that are left that are, hey, these guys are all pretty good. I think you always bring back them for a second interview, but that way you're not actually wasting your time with going through a big long laundry list of questions within the interview to go through. So this is my particular list. I want people with some sort of technical ability. I mean, obviously they've got to have some sort of skill set. They have to have at least a baseline. Even if they're green and I'm going to train them, still want them to actually be able to handle the basics of the job, actually have some sort of level of competency when they're walking in the door. For a more senior position, then obviously I need, people who are a lot more skilled. The other thing, I mean, honestly, I want people that are passionate about InfoSec. I don't really have, I personally think that if you're an InfoSec, it can be thankless enough as it is. You're going to get stuck in long hours. I mean, you're going to, you're out on some pen test. I want the guy who's like so eager to solve the puzzle that he's not afraid to be working at, 1:30 in the morning trying to bang away. God, I almost have it. I want to get it. You got to have that guy that's really interested and really excited about, solving the puzzle. Or, if there's if you're on more of the blue team side, somebody that's actually looking through the data and they might basically find something. And I mean, they're the type of employee that you have to tell them, God damn it, go home. You've been here long enough. I mean, that's the kind of employee that you want to have on your team. Somebody who's actually enthusiastic about what they're doing. They're really excited. They're always out reading blogs, checking out Twitter, finding out new things that are going on. Like, I want people on my team that I'm finding out stuff from, that I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. Good find. I mean, that's what I want. Obviously, you need some level of ethics about, what you're doing. I mean, and it really is kind of a tough thing, but you don't, you can't really have somebody if you're going off and doing pen tests on banks and everything. You don't want to have somebody that you're worried about. You stay awake at night saying, okay, what were they actually doing, in there? I mean, am I going to find out later that they were putting in black doors? I mean, I'm going to have to worry about my, I'm actually have to invoke that professional liability insurance that, we keep. I don't really want to ever have to deal with that. Fit with the culture. I mean, honestly, when you have a good team that's working like a well-oiled machine and people are getting along, nothing can ruin that worse than somebody who just doesn't fit at all. And I mean, they don't have to be the perfect fit. I mean, people are all different. You don't want a bunch of clones that all think the same way. But if you got guys that are just totally off the deep end, that are just completely not gonna fit with your culture at all, it's probably best they find work somewhere else. I mean, you can put together a great team that actually works together, communicates well. If they're all sort of on the same page, it's going to help the way things go. And then obviously the last one that I have to have is somebody that has good communication, good soft skills. At this point, I don't have anyone that I can bury in the basement and just, never let the clients see this guy and everything. You got to have somebody that's going to be actually out there and able to be in front of the clients. Like, anytime you have a client, you want to be able to stick them out in front of them and not have to worry about, oh God, am I going to get a call? Am I going to get a call? You want somebody who's good. So, when it actually comes time for the interview, I have found that, a lot of people, sometimes when people are hiring, they just want to have just one person. I think it's always better to have at least multiple opinions in there, but don't go crazy. I mean, this isn't, we don't need to, be the meeting of the Joint Chiefs or, whatever. We don't need to have 20 people in the room, everyone giving their opinion, because everything just gets clouded up. Just, pick maybe one person that you really trust. I mean, I'm usually in the room with, I actually usually interview with our HR manager, who's completely non-technical at all. And it actually kind of gives me, it can give me a good perspective, because that's one of the things I always love to do in the soft skills kind of interview is, okay, what you just explain it to her. Okay. Now let's, okay, you're really smart. I believe you're correct in what you're doing, but she didn't understand a word you said. So, explain it to my HR person. The other thing that I always tell people is that, when I first started doing IT, I was working for a city job, and there was the city rules of, if you ask any interviewer, if you ask an interviewee these 5 questions, you have to ask every single interviewee these exact 5 questions. Okay. Thankfully I'm not doing that anymore. so I kind of have a little bit of leeway. I can actually ask a lot of other questions and do what I want to do. But just don't be afraid to pull the plug. If you're 5 minutes into this thing and you know that this guy isn't going to work, I mean, like I said, me and the HR manager, we kind of just have that little, look we can give each other, and then we just start skipping questions, and let's just, let them get out of this interview with a little bit of dignity, but let's just get it over with. Because we've all got too many important things to do, and let's not actually waste their time going through the interview, and going through a bunch of stuff. Let's not waste their time. Let's not waste our time. If we already know this person is not going to be a good fit, and I mean, totally glaringly not a good fit, get them out of there. Another thing that's great to do is, if you've got a couple candidates that you like, I mean, don't leave them hanging. If there's some sort of delay in making a decision or delay in figuring things out, don't be afraid to just say, hey, send them in a little email, say, hey, thank you for coming in. We're still working on some stuff. I mean, everyone can remember when you've done a job interview, you've gone in and you thought it went well, but you don't know, and then you wait a week, 2 weeks, you're just not hearing anything. It's aggravating. So if it's not going to work out, you can let them know, but if it is, if it's something, you're in a job interview. So if somebody has a major problem, like hygiene, if somebody can't shower before they go to a job interview, that's a problem. If they're totally inappropriate attire, that wouldn't make any sense. So they show up late, have bad time management, that kind of thing. It's not good. I actually had one guy that, that's nice and all, but what does that kind of tell me about you, that you're already out here, just complaining and moaning about all this other stuff? I mean, what happens the first time things get a little tough around here? Are you going to run around telling everyone how much we suck? Is that what's going to happen here? What's going on? It just struck me as a red flag in front of them, and being able to actually, have them not embarrass you, embarrass your organization. Those are things to always keep in mind. When you begin the interview, thing to keep in mind that this is their first impression of you usually. So you want to actually be on your best behavior too, and actually show them, hey, this is a place that you really do want to work, because you don't want to have the perfect candidate come along and they don't want to work with you because, you spent the whole interview checking your email on your phone or something dumb like that. You want to highlight elements of your culture that makes your place unique. I mean, we've got a whole thing where every time someone's hired, we issue them a Nerf gun, and they're expected to defend themselves at all times. And generally on your first day on the job, you get shot to hell. I mean, that's just part of the culture. It's one of those things that happens. So if you've got that sort of element in your culture, highlight it, make them understand this is something that you actually, we're a group that you want to be a part of. You want to clearly highlight and explain the role of the person. Like, what are they actually going to be doing? As a caveat, don't actually tell them everything that you're looking for in an employee. People are really smart about that. The minute they hear, hey, you might be looking for this, they immediately will shift and tell you all about how they're perfect at just that particular thing. If you say, I'm, looking for a particular trait, they're going to be talking, if you say, I need somebody who's going to be reliable, they'll spend the rest of the interview talking about how reliable they are. You just be careful about that kind of thing. And also, be on time. Their time's valuable, your time's valuable. Actually think about those kind of things. If you're an employee and you're going into an interview, think about a few other things. If the interviewer's late, that's probably not a good idea. If they spend the whole time also talking crap about the person you're replacing, oh God, I'm so glad we're rid of that guy, we want to hire somebody new. It's like, well, what are they going to say about me if they ever get rid of me? Are they just going to sit there and tell everyone how crappy I was and what I did? I don't really think that that's a very good thing. This is the biggest red flag that I can ever say for someone. If you're going in for a job interview, if the person who's hiring you can't actually explain to you what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis, they don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know if you really want to be part of that company. They really should have a good vision of what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be contributing. Obviously, positions change, things change, but they should have a good idea of how they're going to be using you. You don't want to be it's a pretty unfulfilling job just sitting in a cubicle waiting for somebody to tell you something to do. It sucks. If they haven't even looked at your resume before the interview, are they really that invested in this? Are they actually looking at you? I always, as a guy who's hiring, I always love to take at least a few minutes. If they're actually making it to the interview, take a few minutes to actually look over the resume, jot down a few questions about it, actually ask them things that are important about their resume and actually talk to them about it. These are your interview classics that everyone loves to talk about. HR makes me have them in there sometimes, but I think they're generally fairly worthless. I mean, are you a team player? Why, no, I am not a team player. I'm a raging dick. Come on. List your strengths and weaknesses. And that one, I love people's answers with that. They list off all their strengths, and then they manage to list a weakness that somehow makes it a strength. I just work too hard. I am so overly devoted to my job. I don't know what to do without it. Come on. What does that actually tell me about you other than, you get creative about having to figure out what sort of weaknesses out there? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't really know. I need someone to work right now. I don't really give a crap about 5 years. It doesn't really help me out. So these are the things that I really like to interview about, and some of the questions I like to use. I want somebody who's passionate about InfoSec. I mean, this is the first question I generally start out every interview with. Where do you get your InfoSec news from? CNN. Okay. No, I don't think so. Tell me at least one interesting story you've heard about in the last week. And if people get stumped, it's like, well, just tell me one interesting story you've heard about. If they're completely stumped, or it's like, I actually had a guy, I was interviewing a guy and asking him, and it was just like 3 days after the Target breach, and he couldn't name me one story. It's like, I don't think you're really that passionate about this whole InfoSec thing. I don't think you're really looking at things, figuring things out. You want answers like, at the very least, I get news from, Twitter or, somewhere else. I mean, something that's not like mainstream news. If somebody says, oh yeah, occasionally something pops up on MSN, like, come on. You're interested in InfoSec. You're not passionate about InfoSec. Another great question that's easy is, ask people, what does your home lab look like? How do you practice your exploits, or how do you practice what you're doing? It's a simple question. I mean, people, you want answers like, oh, I've got a ton of old machines and I do this, or, I've got a whole bunch of vulnerable VMs that I love to practice on and love to do all these other things. That's a good answer. I mean, people who are just like, oh, I don't really have one. I don't, that could be kind of a red flag. I mean, are they really that passionate about it if they're not actually trying to do if they're not actually trying these exploits? They don't hear about, the first thing, I don't know about the rest of you. The first thing I do when I hear about some crazy exploit, the first thing I want to do is, I really want to try that. That sounds awesome. Those are the kind of people you want. This is like, and the next question, what's the coolest hack you've ever encountered? I mean, that's like, seriously, walk out there, find someone at random and ask them that. It's like crack cocaine. It's like, oh shit, I heard about this the other day. It was so awesome. They just, they can't shut up about it. If you get someone that's actually passionate about it. People who don't really care, they're, oh, I don't know. You can really weed that out. And again, I love people that are passionate about InfoSec. Even if their technical skills aren't there, I'd rather take someone who just, their heart and soul, their passion's in it. They want to learn. They want to know about it. That's the kind of guys I want on my team. Ethics questions, sort of a basic kind of classic one. Tell me about some ethical dilemma you faced in the past, how you handled it, what you learned from it, what would you do differently. That's kind of a standard one. I generally like to give people like a scenario based one, and this actually happened. I'm not making it. I was at a client, and we were just kind of doing an audit, and I had a guy tell me that IT guy is like, well, I don't think we're secure enough, so I tried to hack my third-party web hosting vendor, and I hacked the shit out of him. I did all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, well, that's, that kind of brings up an awkward thing. It's like, okay, well, he's great at, he's interested in what he's doing and everything like that. But I mean, think about that for a minute. You know how much trouble that you could get in for doing that, through your own, from your business. Oh, I'm just going to hack my web hosting kind of thing. Well, what would you do? How would they handle that? I don't know if there is exactly a right answer of, how to move forward, but that's definitely an odd scenario of what you would do. You might want to know that. Do you fit with our culture? Kind of some more of a standard question. What are the positive aspects of your current job and work environment? What do you like? What do you like about your current job? Have them actually tell you, here's the things that I think are really cool about where I work right now. As opposed to just having a bad mouth it. Say, these are the things I like. These are the things that work well. Another one, you can kind of look at how they work on a team as opposed to saying, are you a team player? You can say things like, what role do you like to play on the team? What do you usually play? Tell me about a project that you did and one of the projects that you really enjoyed, that you felt was really successful. Tell me what did you do on that project and what role did you play? I mean, you can kind of get a good idea of, I jumped out front and I researched this and I did that, or I found this problem and then I went and got help and I figured out this whole thing. Get the whole story. Are they just a worker bee? I mean, do you need a worker bee? That's fine, but are they just going to be the one who's in there doing the wrench turning, or are they somebody who wants to jump to the front and figure out what's going on? It gives you a good insight as to what their team is. The final question is a question that I have to ask at every single interview. And, if I ask people to tell me if they prefer ninjas, pirates, or zombies and why. And the main reason for this is that I want to know if they actually fit into the culture. And, I actually had one person, she told me immediately without hesitation, none of the above, robots. I said, you're hired. That's what I said. But I mean, it's just, it's the thing about it, our just sort of our corporate culture is that, I want people to actually have a sense of humor that can, take a joke during the middle of an interview, kind of go forward with that. Soft skills, easy one. It's kind of a softball, but tell me what you know about our company. Did they actually research your company? Did they actually take the time, or are they just kind of showing up for another job interview, kind of doing their thing? Kind of like I was saying earlier. Explain how a man in the middle attacks to my HR director. How exactly does that work? Can they actually break a complicated technical attack down of some, crazy DNS spoofing or crazy ARP spoofing, doing something crazy? Like, can they actually break that down to a level that somebody with very little technical knowledge can actually understand? An easy one that can tell you a lot about how a person thinks is just, what do you think it takes to effectively manage an organization's information security? Do they have big picture? I mean, are they going to actually, what are they going to say? I mean, people who, start talking about, antivirus and endpoint and like all this other stuff. Well, okay, then they really have a very ground level knowledge of what's going on. If they actually start talking about architecture and, devices and everything, you might get a very technical response. Some people might start talking about, policy, social engineering training, everything. They start thinking at a high level. Some people might actually go through the whole thing. Gives you a good idea of where their brain's at and where they work. I like that one. Technical questions, and this is the part that they should just hit out of the ballpark. If they, these are the things that they actually should do. I love to test people's breadth of knowledge. You get a good idea of where their limitations are. Don't ever be afraid to make these questions hard. Just grill them. Go through the whole list of questions, things that are actually really difficult, really hard. The best employees are always going to like to be challenged. If you're not giving them, hard questions, you don't want to just toss out easy things to them. You want to say, you want to know, and even if you get to a question that they don't know the answer to, that can actually be a real benefit, because you get them thinking through their mind. You get to understand how they think and how they react when they're confronted with something that they don't know about. So if they actually are going to work through the problem, think about it, or they're just going to bail and, I don't know, I'm sorry. How are they going to handle that type of situation? Some easy ones you can throw out there. Describe in technical detail how a botnet works. If somebody says that they're passionate about InfoSec and comes in, but they can't just tell you, at least on some basic level, how a botnet works, that's probably a warning sign that this is not somebody you want to have in your organization. Easy, what's the difference between coding, encryption, and hashing? That's an easy one. Another thing I love to do is throw out a packet capture. Just take a Wireshark packet capture of something and just drop it in front of them and tell me, what do you see? It's funny the kind of things that you'll see. Like, I had one that I've used in interviews in the past that was just a packet capture of, I started Wireshark, I opened my web browser and went to ESPN.com and then stopped Wireshark. That was it. And then just stick it in front of them. And I have heard the craziest frickin' stories about what people are like. I had one guy tell me this is clearly a denial of service attack. Really? I just, it's interesting how people, when they don't know, they tend to try and make up something. It's like, no, this is pretty straightforward what's going on here. Just some other samples, maybe get a little harder, Tell me an example of what a blind SQL injection attack looks like. That's a good one. List all the ways you can think of to prevent malware from executing on an endpoint. Are they just going to go to AV and more AV and more AV, or are they actually going to start thinking about some other ways that you might prevent malware on an endpoint? Another question, describe public key cryptography and give examples of how it would be used to ensure confidentiality and integrity. And make it a question a little bit. That should be something that someone should be able to answer. tell them, if you actually want to, get hard and you want to ask them something that maybe they might not know the answer to, say, explain the difference between a buffer overflow and a heap spray. What's the difference? Compare it to me. If they know it, great. Then they're, really passionate about InfoSec. They know what's going on. They know how exploits work. They're down and dirty into that. If they don't know, that's fine. But at least you've determined, okay, here's the baseline. Here's the end of their knowledge. If it actually comes down to doing a second interview or actually coming down to that, never forget that a demo is actually worth 1,000 interview questions. If you can actually get them to show you what they know, it's way better because people can BS their way through a question. They can convince you that they know something, but if they don't actually know something, they're not going to really be able to demo it for you. So for like a penetration tester, simple. I've done this before. I give people just an Nmap scan of a network. Just, you can even print it out on a piece of paper, hand it to them, say, okay, well, here's an Nmap scan. There's about 10 hosts in there. Just draw me that network on the board, on the whiteboard. The other thing you could do is just give them an info gathering target and tell them, okay, well, you got 10 minutes, get as much information about this person as possible and tell me how you would spearfish this guy. That could be a good one. The other thing you can do is just have a lab in there and have them plug in, just say, here's a Kali Linux, install. Just see what all you can own. Give them half hour, see what they can do. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing that says that, an interview just has to be a bunch of questions. There's no reason to look at that. Security analysts, actually have them parse a packet capture, have them go through some log files. Give them a list of events and have them categorize it by risk, and actually have them justify why is this more dangerous than this. There's no reason why you can't have them do that. You could even have them look at a SIM and say, okay, where are the interesting events? What's the crazy things that are going on? What's the things that we should be the most worried about? You can always do things like this to have them do that. Engineer and architect, maybe have them, work out some firewall rules based on some specifications. I love just asking people open-ended questions like, would you whiteboard out a secure network for me? It's like, what does that mean? Well, you can learn a lot about a person, about how they interpret that question, how they actually go through and draw it out. This one almost falls in the category of being mean, but you deliberately misconfigure something and then see if they can fix it. That can be something that can be pretty interesting, to see how people work through a problem, how they approach it. Demos are great, particularly, but again, never waste a demo on a first interview. Make sure they actually get through that first one before you waste it, because these can take a lot of time, and you don't want to actually spend a bunch of time on, dealing with people going through a demo if they're not going to be a good candidate. When it comes time to end the interview, easy one is, do you have any questions for us? See if they've been listening. Good candidates usually have questions. They want to know, okay, well, what is it about this place that makes it special? What are my benefits going to look like? I mean, even if they're, whatever the questions are, good candidates usually aren't going to just be like, no, okay, see you later. I mean, that's not, typically good candidates are ones that actually, are going to be engaged in the process. They're going to have some questions for you. Leave this as a chance to close. I mean, to use a sales term, I mean, if this is somebody that you think, hey, this guy's got a lot of potential, I want this guy in my company, highlight the desirable aspects of your company again, reiterate their expectations, give them fair expectations about when you're going to be making a decision, and try and stick to it. If you don't stick to it, follow up with them. Let them know what's going on. I mean, this is your chance to kind of close it out and actually do it. So we've gone through this process. We've hired somebody. Now what? This is just sort of just as one little note. Everyone, you spend a ton of time hiring someone, finding the right candidate, doing everything. Never forget the day that everyone remembers the most on any job is their first day and their last one. So make it a real positive impression. I mean, if no one wants their first day to be, their onboarding to be, okay, I came in and I watched 8 hours of training videos and then I went home. It's, all the energy and excitement that they have about having a new job, you curbed a lot of that out. Make sure they can contribute. Have fun. Actually, have them jump in and actually contribute. Be like, I'm so glad you're here. Here's a problem that we've been trying to fix for a while. I'm just going to have you jump right into it and see what you can solve. Here are some ideas. Get them in with a team. Get them interacting with people. Actually make them feel like they're part of the team on day one. I think that's really, really important. So, as just sort of a final thing to my talk here, this is something that, for people like me who came out of just a purely technical background, now in more of a manager role, try to figure this out. I mean, I'd love to know what I can do more, for the community, for everyone sort of on this topic. If, is this, something where we should have like a questions database of, interview questions that, we like to go through, ways of interviewing, ways of talking. Is there, other topics that, about, management, doing these other things that are useful to a technical audience that we're actually able to look at and, discuss and help us all get better at this particular topic. I mean, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to figure out a way that I can continue to contribute and give back. And so just sort of close up, thank you very much to B-Sides for having me talk today. I appreciate the opportunity. And, I welcome any questions that people have. Love to talk. So, yeah. How you doing?
I have an issue at my work where our HR department wants us to document the answers to all the questions that we ask interviewees and why we selected a particular candidate.
Right.
I'm wondering, to my mind, I figure it only allows me to ask multiple choice. Do you have any other ideas?
Usually, I would certainly never do the multiple choice. I mean, you usually want to have some sort of standardized, at least, ask at least the basic same questions to the same ones. But, just because HR wants you to ask, standard type of questions doesn't necessarily mean that you can't ask the specific ones that you want. And, as long as you get through those questions, typically if there's ways that you follow up, I want to follow up on this answer that somebody gave or did that thing. I mean, I think that's perfectly fair. They can, sometimes it can get you in a little bit of trouble, but if you, you just kind of have to, we're all hackers, figure out how to work within the system to break the system. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
There are no other questions. I'll ask you another one.
Sure.
I've kind of found that interviewing candidates and being interviewed is almost like dating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some common ground there.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on how you can narrow in on something that they actually know something about to do the interview? Or do you recommend just hitting with the shotgun spread of questions?
Well, as opposed to going to the shotgun, I would really kind of like I said, go back to what you really think that they're going to need to do, the most critical things that they're going to have to do. And if you really target those particular things, I think that basically, that'll give you a really good picture of what they are. It is a lot like dating. It really is. And that's kind of almost why, I love getting them out for a beer first, just to be honest with you. And anytime anyone pushes back on budget with that, I'm like, how much money am I saving by not having to get rid of somebody later? It's, a couple beers. You can afford it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Right.
So, is there a way to, encourage manipulate or, stun on them so that they shut up and once you actually hire the company, except I'll give you an example. One was they were like, this candidate was amazing, but they were like, oh, she didn't use the following 6, catchphrases.
Right. Yeah.
She's brilliant. You can teach her to say stupid things.
Well, I would say that just sort of I think that is a battle that's probably best fought before the interviews even start. I mean, obviously, too late after the fact, but if you can really convince them of, okay, well, here are the things that we actually really, really, truly need. If you can actually get that hammered into their head, and unfortunately, sometimes with this kind of thing, it's like results. If when they get tired of tripping over themselves enough times. I mean, I'm actually not kidding. I've had other managers of other departments ask me to do their hiring for them. So if you can actually get that into that kind of position where you can fight that battle beforehand, and really kind of present your case well, because it's, you really do, if you can actually hire the right people the first time, it's really so much of a cost savings. There's a huge amount of efficiency that you save, and you really do save a lot of time. So. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Sure. I love the open-ended type of ones. I like to actually have the discussion. That's kind of why I tend to have try and keep the number of questions at least as much limited as I can, because I want to be able to follow up with people. I want to be able to kind of go through and let them do those open-ended questions, because the open-ended ones do definitely tend to tell people a little bit more about what their knowledge is and what their thought process is than if you just ask them a really point-blank question. Then, they're kind of getting, you never want to answer. I mean, the worst thing you can ever do in an interview is ask a yes or no question. It's that you're not going to learn anything about it. So. Oh, yeah, you got one more.
Yeah, so you made a mention initially of different kind of pre-hiring strategies that you can use, like, going to universities, taking speeches, using your employees as a network.
Yeah.
Which of all the strategies that you're currently using have you found to be, like, hands down the most effective?
Well, as a startup, I end up getting a lot of I tend to bring on a lot of people that are relatively green and then train them up and get them to where I want to go. I mean, it's usually the philosophy I've used. So I've actually found the colleges are phenomenal. I've gotten, one of the universities I'm at, that I went to EWU, and I actually went in and, every year go out and talk to the security class every single year. And, they, just always end up grabbing the best and brightest out of the program and trying to bring them in and grow the program that way. Has been a way that I've done it a lot. So much so they were going to cancel the program for a year, and I said, no, let me teach it. And they said, okay. So I don't know what I'm getting into, but next year I got to teach the program. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's the one that I've had the most success with. Any sort of networking or anything where you can actually meet people and interact with them socially, I think is the one that is always going to pay the most dividends. Because then you, again, before they even step in the interview room, you know a good deal about the person. You can actually vet them out a decent amount. So, all right. One more, and then I'm getting the.
So, being that we are people who are hired for our abilities to touch computers.
Yeah.
What was the most interesting thing you learned from your job?
That's a good question. Usually kind of that, a lot of times the perspective of sort of assumed knowledge, like even when I think that people are dumbing things down, sometimes they really aren't, that they're actually sort of that whole idea of, and particularly for, a lot of we have a ton of clients that are, we deal with small, like one room kind of spots, and, we deal with some of them that are pretty small and have to help them with security assessment. And being able to actually explain it in layman's terms is something that really gets critical for us. I mean, even as you go up into bigger organizations, okay, well, I've got to give a presentation to the board of directors. Okay, can I actually explain this well enough? And sometimes I actually found that even for me, man, I really wasn't explaining that as well as I thought I was, until you actually get someone who's really non-technical in the room, you can get a good filter on how that actually works and if they're actually hearing things properly. Does that kind of make sense? Or, yeah, awesome. So, all right. Well, that's all I got. So, I'm on Twitter at Delisnia. My email addresses are up there. Feel free to ping me if any of you guys have any questions or you want to talk further. Always happy to chat with you guys. So thank you very much today. Appreciate it.